Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us is a local practitioner in the Furcrest community. We have Dr. Ryan Bland. He is a DC and a functional medicine practitioner speaking on the topic of manifest wellness and unlock your inner magic. Thank you so much, Dr. Bland, for being here with us.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure to get the opportunity to connect with the health and wellness community local I practice. Um, for everyone out there who is watching this, know that Marlene's is the number one store with the freshest produce and the best food and some pretty good supplements too. It's a great place to go for like individuals who are into wellness. Um, if you are interested in looking me up, I can be found on Instagram at Dr. Ryan Bland, RyanBland. And you could give me a shout at my office and find me to just type in. So let's get into it. So, title of our talk today is Manifesting Wellness to Unlocking Your Inner Magic. Well, the body in balance, seen perform miraculous tasks. So I see a lot of patients, though the magic that you're looking for is probably hidden in the work you're not doing. And I like to guide my patients if they aren't feeling well or doing well or they're having chronic issues. You must look within and look at yourself and take a really good look. But it is really apparent to me in all this that we are only strong as our environment. So if people in the beginning of the year, they like to, rush out and they like to detox and force exercise regimens. This is a time for a new start to gently work our way into health and wellness. We live in a world where they call things getting they call biohacking. How fast and how extreme can I get healthy? What we like to preach here is bio. Why don't we harmonize with our body and slowly incorporate new practices of health and wellness to our life? But how do we even know really what is making us up? Most people walk around having very few ideas of what, and they say, oh, we're getting to the root cause of my health. And I think the root cause of a lot of people's health, besides emotions and your mental state of mind, I think people need to focus on what mold, parasites, heavy metals, chemicals, and bacteria have to do with their system. Because I think a lot of people uh, have a lot of dysbiosis or disorganization in the gut. And, I believe it was Hippocrates thousands of years ago said, look for the root cause of what's going on in the gut. And there are so many amazing doctors who are going back to this idea, this thousand some odd year old idea. I've seen Dr. Gundry, he's coming out with a new book. Who, if you don't know who he is, he's a cardiac surgeon and he's been in practice for 50 years. And after 50 years of working with patients, doing surgeries, he's realizing that a lot of the heart issues that he's seen in patients started in the gut. They started with the dysbiosis of the gut. So if you have dysbiosis of your gut, that means your neurotransmitters are off. So you have anxiety and depression and brain fog because 95% of your serotonin and I think 70% of your dopamine, and these are like your feel good neurotransmitters. You can also not be absorbing vitamin B and iron correctly, which is necessary for red blood cell respiration and so many other processes. Our body and our health is very reliant on our mitochondria. And the mitochondria create ATP, and they're the powerhouse of your cell that makes energy. And if the cell can't turn energy, how are you going to have cellular vitality? So these are things that you focus and realize that eating the wrong foods or taking the wrong supplements can cause this level of dysbiosis. And there's also environmental factors, as discussed previously, with chemicals and heavy metals that we have no control over. Arsenic is just in the air. You're breathing it in. There's just stuff that is in our environment. So as a society, it's never been how it is, and we live in a funny, weird time, and we need to prepare our minds and our bodies in a different way than we've ever done. Over the past couple of years, we have all spent some time introspectively asking, what is health? How do you obtain health? And I think over the past couple of years, people have been enlightened to the idea that vitamins maybe be a good preventative measure, eating and exercises and all of these health habits are really important. And I think most patients who I see have been suffering for a very long time, and they're right there. They're just a step away from health and wellness, and it's just about fine tuning it. But I want to get into each one of these topics concerning what would be causing um, this dysbiosis. First thing I want to talk about is bacteria. And I'm just going to define a couple of these things and then we can talk about it later. I think that would be cool. But let's talk about bacteria because some people don't know what it is. How is it different from us? So bacteria are microscopic, single-celled living organisms. There's millions of kinds. What's really interesting is many can be found in and on your body, and there are many of them that are beneficial to you. They make up what's called your microbiome, which is maybe 10 times more cells than your cells. So it's a lot of cells that your body is carrying bacteria. Now, bacteria isn't good or bad. Let's stop thinking of things being good or bad and think of it on the spectrum. The right balance of bacteria will give you best health. There are people who doctors who give fecal transplants to insert people's bacteria into your body for health and wellness. This is how desperate we've gotten as a society, and how deeply we've been avoiding the work we should be doing. And we'll talk about the work later in the video. Um, so a lot of people in this world have been on antibiotics. Well, what is it? What does that do? That kills all of the good and bad bacteria in your system. Now, this alone, I've seen people struggling for years and years on end, needlessly, due to overexposure to these antibiotics, as well as them being handed out inappropriately. As I see many people given antibiotics when they have an infection that is like an H. pylori, which is an antibiotic resistant strain. So every time you take an antibiotic, the bacteria is resistant and the human body becomes resistant. So it's something that when needed, it could be important, but a lot of times it's overprescribed and it's really affecting the gut health of the body. So bacteria versus a virus, bacteria is actually much larger than a virus, which is pretty interesting. Viruses are non-living, and you have to think about like a virus as like a home intruder who has like all of the information on how to like, make pancakes in your house at night, but doesn't have any of the ingredients. So viruses are just basically like packaged information that like hijack the system and rob you. It's like a computer virus. You answer the wrong email, and the next thing all of these things are going on. Um, so bacteria is really important. So we need to just address the antibiotics, the risk of illness of what's going on, and realize that you treat around naturally. There are plenty of plant and herbs that you can take, like golden thread, which is one of my favorite plant antimicrobials and antivirals. It's like an antibiotic, but without all the bad stuff. Then you have Alyssium. Alyssium is another amazing herb. Alyssium is basically what flu wants to be. They just did research on Alyssium, is star innate. It tastes a little bit like licorice. And it's more effective than Theraflu. So there are so many things that you can utilize to balance the bacteria. Olive leaf is another one I really enjoy, and I think I've seen great results with patient outcome with this, with no side effects ever. Um, so it's important. that we continue to find healthy solutions instead of running to medicines and antibiotics that are causing even a deeper issue, gut dysregulation. So next thing I want to talk about, something that's really near and dear to my practice, is mold and fungus. Mold is not a plant. It's not fungus, candida, yeast, mold. There's so many different ways, you can identify these things. So it's important to know some of the different names. And some people, they say, oh, well, like, penicillin is a mold. Isn't mold good for you? Mushrooms are mold. Isn't mold good for you? Again, it's what kind of mold is I would think there are different levels mold and mold exposure, but related to health, fungus, candida, mycotoxins, they're all words that we synonymously describe rigid cell wall plant and animal garbage disposals. That's what fungus does. It disposes things. And when it's in our bodies, it causes a plethora of acid aldehydes and other chemical breakdowns that can be found on an OAT test. Um, and when there's too much of this, it can cause sensitivity in many health conditions, from brain fog. Um, a lot of women I see who think they have thyroid issues, they actually are having Hashimoto's reaction from a fungal infection. So when we're talking about getting to the root cause, like when you remove the fungus, the Hashimoto's and the autoimmune gets better. Um, and the reason why is your body and your immune system has uh, a system called the Th1 H2 regulatory system, and they're inversely related. I've talked about this before, but real quick, they're inversely related. So when your T2 goes up when mold, no, stress, uh, metals, vaccines, caffeine, parasite. As T2 goes down with virus, bacteria, and mold, you let basically all of the fungus and mold in, and you're left at a point where your body will um, switch on NF kappa B, which is a pathway that turns on over 300 inflammatory reactions, or you can initiate Th17, which is an immune reaction that is, just as destructive. Um, so I mean, it's fun to talk about it, but this is not fun when you go through it. And I think people um, don't realize that health is multifactorial. So when people come into my office, they're not just I just identify one bacteria or one. It's what kind of bacteria is going on, what mold is going on, what metal is going on, what emotional stress. When treating patients, we're looking for the thought, toxin, and trauma of the event. But being in the Pacific Northwest, mold is prevalent. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's cold, and sometimes it's wet. So it's the perfect place for mold to grow. Mold is extremely common in buildings, and most of the stuff your home is made of is like food for mold. Mold loves, like I said, a dark, damp place, but it loves wood and cellulose and rock and all of these different materials that are just so prevalent in modern construction. Basically, you can grow mushrooms off of your walls. Um, but also mold can come from heating, air conditioning systems. This is very common. Come from household pets, bringing in your shoes. If you do not take your shoes off, please, ladies and gentlemen, take your shoes off when you get in your house and don't walk around. It can be passed from, like I said, from materials such as clothing. It can pass through materials um, like a book. If you went to a library and brought a book home, and somebody else's house had mold, you can bringing kind of stuff. But think about where you're at in different places, and look at the ceiling tiles and look for stains on ceiling tiles and ceiling. Using your nose is a really good test. If it smells moldy, it's probably moldy. Um, Large mold infestations can usually be smelled. So that's good to know. But there's one thing you can do to check at home. One of my favorite things is an immunolytics mold test. These things can be bought on Amazon for like 30 bucks. And they're literally a petri dish that you swab different rooms, you put it on the petri dish and you see if it can grow mold. Now, it's worth its weight in gold because you're able to ascertain what need to be remediated, what rooms need to be absolutely destroyed, what rooms you need to just say, hey, cool, it's a great room. So I think this immunolytics test is absolutely a gold standard for a lot of patients, especially if they're living in the Pacific Northwest, as I have quite a few of them from patients and their homes and their office and workplaces, and the results are astounding. I've seen no mold, which gives you confidence that you're in environments you can heal. But I've also seen so much mold that it's dangerous for human consumption to be there. So it's important to um, do and take as many steps as you possibly can with your health and for your health and for your family's health. And also with these tests, you can also swab your own mouth. It's not advised so, but some practitioners I know have experimented. And if you swab your mouth and swab the petri dish and you see something growing, you most likely probably have a very serious mold in your body. Um, so that's a really awesome and special thing. And if you use my name, Dr. Bland, you might have there might be a coupon code out there in the world for it. Um, so there's different kinds of people. I see families all the time, and each member of the family can be suffering from the mold in a different way. Um, so a mom could have Hashimoto's, the son could have food sensitivities, um, you know, somebody in there could have digestive issues. Somebody could also be fine. Somebody could be perfectly fine. The difference is your toxic load, your levels of stress will dictate your levels of reactivity. We all have different levels of reactivity. But most people who are dealing with mold issues, they will have memory issues, depression, deep anxiety, they'll have chronic health issues, headaches, asthma. Um, there are some studies linking mold exposure to cancer, but there's really not enough data to really make that. But I think I've seen enough and experienced enough to know that it's something you want to definitely do everything you can to avoid. Um, so people with allergies or people with immune systems that are weakened, people who have chronic respiratory disease, people are usually most susceptible to having an issue with mold. What you can do for your house is controlling your humidity levels. I have in pretty much every main room, and it's running pretty much all the time. And the amount of liquid that comes air in my home is absolutely astounding. We're talking about gallons of water a day per 24-hour cycle. So imagine that getting into the walls of your house. You only need 45 degrees, 45% or greater humidity to start growing mold in your house. So, you have to also, if you're detoxing, you have to look at your environment and how much your environment is causing these toxins. So if you see mold, you got to throw some stuff out. You have to promptly fix anything that's leaking. A lot of people find it in their bathroom and they hit it with bleach. Don't hit it with bleach. Bleach has water. It's just going to make more fungus grow and you're going to breathe in bleach. You're going to get sicker. Please stop that. Also, stuff out might be a little sensitive to some people, but you got to get rid of it. Inspect everything, your mattress, your pillows, your beds, your blankets, your towels. It all needs to be inspected. Um, Borax is a really great medium and a less toxic medium to remediate the mold. I always recommend a diffuser with tea tree oil and maybe some cedar wood to help kill the fungus in the room. And I really like an air doctor. An air doctor is a great air purifier that's on the market that's really, really awesome. It's worth its weight in gold. So that I see tons of people who are suffering with fungus issues. And I'll share a little bit about the diet that I put people on. There's a fungal diet, and we're avoiding feeding the fungus. A lot of diets that I use are elimination-based diets, but they're made to create a different environment so these pathogens won't grow. So a fungal diet, simply a diet where you just start removing and eliminating that would feed the mold. And what feeds mold? Sugar, fungal ferments such as kefir, some cheeses, breads, yeast, stuff like that is what you want to remove alcohol from your diet in order to stop feeding the mold. The first step of detoxing is to stop putting the stuff in that's growing the negative pathogens in your body. Um, and I think mold issues are widely underreported. They're not really spoken about. And I believe that this is a cool opportunity, a little bit of fun, and talk about some nerdy stuff like mold and realize that they're just like literally like they just eat stuff and they eat the inside of the body and cause a lot of irritation. So we're gonna move on to parasites. Parasites also, widely under talked about, the statistics on them are absurd. There's billions of people with parasitic infections all around the world. There's a huge, in tropical climates, parasites are a huge, huge, and just alone, there's 1 billion in tropical climates suffering from cytology and parasitic infections, and it's just not being addressed on a global or a health level. So, parasite. Well, a parasite lives off of a host. It can cause a lot of trouble for a lot of people. And once they leech on, they tend to replicate. Three main parasites: protozoa, helminths, and ectoparasites. And they get us extremely sick. And I'd like to add that maybe 90% of the patients who walk in my office, whether they have thyroid issues, rheumatoid arthritis, whether they have vaccine injury, whether they have, you name it, back pain, whether digestive issues, hormonal issues, it always boils down to some level of parasitic infection. And these parasites are free single-celled organisms, and their ability to control our body and multiply rapidly is amazing. They're smart enough to send neurotransmitter signals to make us so that they can lay more eggs because their survival is based on multiplying. Um, and a lot of people have them. And the transfer to humans and parasites, you don't have to like it's not an extreme event to be exposed to a parasite. It's usually people affected by a fecal oral contamination. It could be improperly handled food, improperly prepared food, anything to do with food and drink. It could be transfer. Also, it could be by a vector. So if you're on a hike and you get bit by a mosquito, and that mosquito a month earlier met a cow who had Lyme infection, and then you got bit by that mosquito, that's being passed back and forth like a used needle into your body. So um, it's just amazing over the course of practice. I know it's a little gross, but I've seen so many patients send me pictures of them actually passing the parasites out of the body. And sometimes they can't believe how much and how long it takes to get them out. And they get them out, I mean, you see amazing results because those parasites are living off eating your food. They're taking up the iron out of your red blood cells. They're living off of you. It's a parasitic infection, and it causes so much inflammation, so many health issues. Um, I Sometimes you have, like I said, the constipation, other of diarrhea. And the reason why you have diarrhea with parasitology is they'll attach to your stomach lining and they will block fat and carbohydrates. So they will block this level of fat and it'll just pass right through your system. So parasites, there's amazing health and wellness remedies. I can't tell you how many times people uh, bother me in my inbox. I usually like to have full conversations with all kinds of people all over the world on Instagram, but there's all kinds of people that ask me if I prescribe ivermectin. So to the rest of the world, I just want to let you know I'm not a medical doctor. I'm very proud of being on the other side of medicine. Medical doctors are responsible for, I don't know, it's the third leading cause of death in the world. So the average medical doctor will kill 13 people. So I don't prescribe ivermectin. I don't care that it won a Nobel Peace Prize. I think that there are plenty of natural forms of things you can do to help gently switch your gut on to being healthy, such as melia, which is an amazing herb. I call it natural ivermectin. Black walnut, this is an amazing anti-parasitic. Artemisia, cat's claw. These are all astragalus. These are all have abilities to uh, correct the microbial imbalance because we live in a world where people just want to kill stuff. And, like I said, the balance of these microbes are for the of positive health and feeling good and high levels of vitality. So if your approach to holistic health is I'm going to do detox and I'm going to kill everything. Biohacking, you're harmonizing. You must bioharmonize with your body for optimal outcome. And a lot of my patients who I work with, it's hard work for some people, but others, people can't believe how fast you can get better and how fast you can heal from years and years of issues. I've had people who have been on medications for 30 years, symptoms for 30 years, and it's not that I'm doing something so different, it's how I'm addressing different things in the office. So it's important to know that there are plenty of alternative health measures seeking medicine first. So the next topic I want to talk about is go into viruses. Again, billions of people have been infected by viruses. They're small germs. Like I said before, they are basically tiny little piece of information that inject themselves into cells and hijack the kitchen and make whatever they want for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Um, some people, like I said, with all of these things, they can have no symptoms, but it can be causing levels of inflammation in the body until there becomes a health issue. But we obviously know a lot about viruses over the past couple of years. Don't go too much into that. Know it causes respiratory illnesses, viruses cause diarrhea, vomiting. Viruses are, a lot of them are sexually transmitted infections and skin conditions. So viruses have this carrying case called a capsid. They have no cells. Like I said, it's just information. It uses your cell's equipment. Um, they enter your body usually through mucous membranes, nose, mouth, private parts, a break in the skin. They attach to the body. They enter, replicate, assemble, and release. Again, all of these things are that we're talking about today that cause illness in the body. They like to replicate at high and fast levels. They do this by direct fusion, and they send these things called bacteriophages into the cell wall. And that's how you start to um, get sick or lose vitality because sometimes some of these infections, like I said, somebody might be experiencing the symptoms of fungus and mold, but they also will have something like a worm or a parasite that is also a subclinical infection contributing to the overall infection and the dysfunction of the human body. Um, Next, I want to talk about heavy metals and chemicals together because heavy metals and chemicals are something that we as a society are dealing with now and today. We've never dealt with it before. The industrial world, as we know, it's 150 some odd years old. There's never been this amount of stuff made ever in human history. So we are exposed to tons of heavy metals and chemicals. Heavy metals are defined as a substance that has an weight on the periodic scale that is 5 times heavier than water. Um, so, due to industrial, domestic agriculture, medical technology, and other technological applications, we have mined so much from our environment, it has become a worldwide concern for the human race. Um, the higher degree of toxicity in the main heavy metals, such as toxic arsenic, cadmium, chromium, lead, mercury. Um, these are the ones that have the greatest public risk of significance to our health. There's been plenty of studies that have shown that these are carcinogens. This will cause cancer. We live in a society, cancer is 1 in 4 people. Cancer is 1 in 4 people. No. So, you realize that chemotherapy is $150,000. So if you're telling me the food Marlene's foods is expensive, having cancer and spending $150,000, so you're gonna have to pay now or pay later. Um, and all of these heavy metals are classified carcinogens, and they can also cause all kinds of other health issues, and specifically neurological issues. A lot of patients of mine who have mental health issues, and I really am a big proponent of mental health, but a lot of people with mental health issues, they are suffering from a metal toxicity and or a parasite toxicity. Metals can be absorbed in air, in the water, in the workplace, from surgeries. Um, it could cause issues other than cancer. It could cause heart issues, blood issues, skin issues. It can cause hearing issues, diabetes, immune issues, and even skin contact alone can expose you to this. Um, little is really known about the mixture of metals and chemicals, which is a scary thought if we know that metals alone are an issue. We live in America, and in America, there are 60,000 chemicals that they say are legal. I don't know why, I don't know how, like, I don't know much about that, but I know that 2,000 new ones are accepted on the list each year. So even chronic exposure to mild and low dose is a huge and serious concern. A lot of patients I ask about their dental and oral health and hygiene because for a long time they've been using different heavy metals in fillings. So there's a lot of people who I work with trying to remove these heavy metals from their body. So it's very important to look into biological dentistry. And a lot of my patients who I find and pick up these issues, it's really important to remediate them as quickly as possible, as people tend to, as I observe, people tend to wait a little bit too long to deal with issues. They like to wait till it becomes too much of a problem. So chemicals are the next thing that I want to talk about. These are compounded by humans. They're human-made substances that are artificially prepared through different various chemical reactions. This is glyphosate, PFAs, PCBs, air pollutants, asbestos, formaldehyde. I recently got PFAs, which are polyfluoroalkenes, and they cause all kinds of cancer and inflammation in the body. And the makeup that you're wearing, the contacts that you're putting against your eyes, your clothes, any polyester. If you're wearing polyester and you're wearing it over parts, over your breasts, or over your whatever's going downstairs, you're literally just inviting cancer to enter your body, and they're forever chemicals. You can't even detox them. So we live in a world where you want to detox, well, they figured out things that you can't detox, and that's what we're using. Think about how many people are wearing underwear that's made of polyester. Um, the more I found out about it, I got one of those health nut moments where I made sure nothing in my home had polyester on it for my wife and my child. Um, and what's really interesting about polyester specifically is as it heats up with your body, it releases a gas that you breathe in. So, I don't care if you're not wearing it, you're wearing it. I don't care if it's just in your house, throw it away. If you want to detox, you have to remove old, outdated thoughts, learn, relearn, and then learn again. So a lot of these poisonous products are in everyday life. I see a lot of women with skin issues, eczema. I see a huge number of people who are topical steroid withdrawal people who have had skin issues and they use all of these creams and all of these medicines, and they all have this huge amount of chemical exposure. Um, and it's sometimes, a lot of times, unfortunately, self-induced. I have people bringing in bags of beauty products, and you're like, well, you put 500 ingredients on your face that's connected to the brain. And you wonder why your skin is having an issue or you're sick. So it's really important to look around at what you have and start doing a little research of chemicals in your home, and start minimalizing your stuff. Like you can clean your house with vinegar, you can clean your house with essential oils. There's different products I'm sure Marlene's has that can help you out. Branch Basics, great company. But like just vinegar and baking soda alone is like a lot, you know. Um, and if you need some chemicals here and there, sometimes there's a big mess and you got to clean it. You can't be mad at that. I'm a big believer in being healthy. I'm a big believer in utilizing holistic means, but there's also a level of reality where sometimes there's a medical emergency and drugs and surgery is needed. But 95% of the time, it's up to us to just do the work that we're not doing to let the magic happen. So with chemicals, it's all on our clothes, our beauty products, and it's destroying fertility and vitality each year. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that um, men's testosterone has been a great deal since the 80s. And I think this is a big component of this. I see a lot of women with hormonal issues, with PCOS, or you name it, I see it. And it's just causing a lot of suffering, and you can just buy cotton or wool and avoid these materials. But you also, as I got deeper into that rabbit hole of chemicals, not only do you have to look at what material it is, but you have to look into the dyes of clothing and the dye up and find out where that's from. So you really, you know, a lot of people have said, like older people, like boomers, they've said, like where you spend your money is your vote. And I'm not a really political person, but I guess where I'm at is where you spend your money will dictate your health and health outcomes. So if you have to like spend a little more to not get cancer or heart disease, just do it. Just do it. Like you don't have to buy the most expensive, red light therapy bed, which is $100,000. There are ways to do healthy, really cheap. And eating healthy and being healthy sometimes will cost more than other options, but it's at the end of the day, it's your freedom. And it's how you feel. And I don't think people realize how valuable that is. But there is hope with metals and chemical exposure. There's supplements you can use. Um, Specifically, one of my favorite is carbonized bamboo, which is called takasumi. It's been used in Japan for a really long time, and it's a really gentle way to get these metals and chemicals out of your body. A lot of people use zeolites or clays, and I think those are absolute trash because those are introducing a metal or something else, so it's like a Trojan horse. You're bringing something bad to take out something bad. Why not just take something like Takasumi that's gentle for humans, babies, animals? It's very, very gentle. Why not use something gentle and efficacious? So Takasumi is a really, really great product to aid the body in the removal of some of these metals and chemicals. Camu is also a natural source of vitamin C. It also can help deal with that, as well as alaria. Alaria has a little iodine in it. It's a kind of seaweed. Iodine will decalcify your pineal gland, open up the third eye, give you some iodine, and also, protect you from radiation. So there's things that you can be protected from. And I guess like radiation EMFs, I would consider it in this conversation. I didn't write it in, but EMFs is a big thing. We have all this stuff. Bodyguard, Piedra, that's a great EMF protector that I use with a lot of patients. But we don't realize that that's another thing. That's another. I guess it's fair to call it a chemical. I hope no one's going to be mad at that, but it's a chemical that we're exposed to, and we wear next to our private parts, near our heart, all over our body. Um, I see a lot of people with wearables, like the wristwatches and stuff that are smart and very dangerous. And I treat a lot of people muscle testing them with their wearable against their body. It weakens their energy most of the time. So avoiding these EMFs is also probably a pretty awesome idea. Um, so next, I want to talk about. So we now know a bunch of things of how we can get. Now, chronic infections and chronic uh, poor diets will create what's called a biofilm in the body. And this is for people who I've been sick forever. I'm never going to get better. So biofilms have this ability to collect viruses, bacteria. It can collect metals and chemicals, and it creates an intracellular matrix of it all together, and it gets like sticky. And this slime is basically like with all of these embedded, bacteria, microbes. It's embedded in a protein in your body on surfaces. Now, these surfaces be, they adhere to this too, so they're like really stuck. So your immune system tries to get it to go away, but it's so smart. They use what's called quorum sensing to shapeshift, change, and possibly move. So for people who have no idea why they're not getting better, why they're so a bio or biofilm accumulation throughout the body is a chronic infection. So you think of somebody sinus infection for like 30 years. Like who's sick 30 years? And you think, well, it's a collection of all of these nasty microbes that are so smart that they're able to evade your immune system. So how do you break this down? Well, you have to create balance in the body. You can also treat with biofilm busters. There's some oils I like to use called BFB1 and BFB2. Um, you can use nattokinase and lumbrokinase, which will specifically break down these hard to reach spots. Um, so it's really important to know that everything we spoke about today, there needs to be more research. More people just need to be having the conversation. It's really important as health and wellness communities to extrapolate on this. So, with all of these things, like I said, there can be so many different symptoms. Like I said, I treat a lot of chronically ill patients who have been anywhere in the realm of 5 and 25 doctors before me. And it's pretty obvious that the health industry is suffering, and it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of people who are unscrupulous in their dealings of things. But we need to know that there are treatments, there are good doctors, just have to find who and what is right for you. But if you're asking questions, you're not getting answers, you're asking for labs. I see so many people who are like asking for labs, working with these naturopaths, paying in thousands of dollars, and they're getting mediocre results or mediocre labs. Somebody with Hashimoto's recently, they didn't even put a full thyroid panel on there. So somebody who has a serious thyroid condition, they don't have a full panel. You're like, well, what's going on? Like, like how would you do that? You know, as a doctor who naturopath functional medicine doctors, you pride yourselves on your knowledge of, and even medical doctors, you pride yourself on this technology. You don't muscle. There's no other holistic means of gathering biofeedback or information. So why are being people so cheap with testing? Another interesting thing going off the beaten path is cholesterol. What an outdated test. We've learned so much about cholesterol recently that eating Oreos apparently lowers your LDL. So wouldn't a better test be a carotid calcification score or an artery scan of your heart? Wouldn't that tell you exactly what's going on? Don't you want to see it? You know, there are some things that are just seeing. And the amount of time to take the test, one's a picture, one's drawing blood. It's pretty much a shorter test, an easier test. They have machines, they're local to you. It's your doctor for one. I don't understand why all the amazing things that I tell people are like, oh my God, I didn't know they could take a picture of your heart. And I think every couple of years should have a picture of their heart and know what's going on in the heart and valves. Because one thing I didn't touch upon, um, which is I guess the last piece of all of this, is metabolic health. And I'm kind of glad I went off on a weird tangent about the heart because it brought me to metabolic health. So, and this will bring me to a cool point. So there's a lot of people who I see and they think they're suffering from sciatica or they're thinking suffering from this horrible illness. Some of these people just need better metabolic health. Some of these people are experiencing pre-diabetes, and that tingle in their leg is a blood sugar spike. And I don't think enough people talk about insulin spikes, and sugar. Carbohydrates aren't evil, fats aren't evil, protein is not evil, but we need to identify that carbohydrates need to be mitigated very carefully for most people because most people are spiking their insulin. I don't think high cholesterol is necessarily bad, but if you have high cholesterol, a bad A1C score, and bad glucose score, there's a problem. Health is multifactorial. But if you are insulin sensitive, your glucose is great, your A1C is under 5.5 or 5.6, and your cholesterol is a little high, then it's probably not a problem. But why not just get a picture and know instead of dealing with that. So it's important to identify that one of the last missing pieces is metabolic issues, which I think they're usually connected to what I did talk about in the beginning is emotional issues, because our emotions dictate our reality, our mindset. And I think it's living a hard time. And the number one thing that we can control is the food. And we could feel good really quick putting what we know, a memory of summer of 1984, like, oh man, 84 was a good year. I remember eating this at the barbecue, and it takes you somewhere other than where you are. You're getting high. Your mind's getting off of what's the work you need to be doing. You're focused on a short term outcome rather than a long term goal. So train your mind and body before you eat something to ask, is this going to be something I'm going to be thankful for in the future? What does future me like? And I tend to, you got to observe and not react so much. And that's something we're all mastering. I'm working on too. Um, and it's important. Um, like going back, all the symptoms you see, they're all over the place. It's everything you can imagine. I don't see any symptom that's new or old. It's pain, it's discomfort, it's dysfunction, and it's not normal. And you can't wait. People need to stop waiting. If it's not normal, it's not good, and you need to just fix it. The longer you wait, the longer it's going to be a problem. Um, so treatment, how do I treat all of this? Well, as a applied kinesiologist, I use manual muscle testing and nutritional response technique to identify these stressors. I actually have my testing kit right here. It's a testing kit full of a bunch of vials, and we use some magnets and we test different levels of the body's reactivity through muscle. The muscle will go strong if it'll go weak if it's a problem. It's weak. We know what made it weak, but we can possibly find some plant antimicrobials or maybe some um, organ replacement supplements to rebuild the autonomic system. But alongside of these techniques, I also love doing labs. I send things out for carotid recalcification scores. I send them out for blood labs. I use any lab you can imagine, doing CBCs, complete metabolic panels, thyroid panels, full liver panels, autoimmune panels. I use Cyrex Labs, which is an amazing lab to look at deeper levels of gut and brain uh, issues. I use assay 220 and 22 if you want to look it up. Those are my favorite. Um, I like hair mineral analysis. I think it's pretty good. It's not the end all. All of these things are just tools that you use. Dutch test is a great test to look at the hormone and hormone mapping for men and women. Um, for mold, like I said, the best test is usually an oat test. It can also be accompanied by an immunolytics test that you can take at home. But the best test and the most accurate results that you can get is with manual muscle testing. Manual muscle testing and neurological reactivity can give you 4 to 5% sensitivity. And the rest of these things you need to be in regular labs, you need to be dysfunctioned about 40 to 50% to tilt the scale in either way, which sometimes it's too late. Once you tilt the scale some way, it could be a chronic disease pathology if it's in that level of dysfunction. So in treating patients, I tend to not see patients too often. I see them once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, and I give them different things to do to basically do the work that they currently weren't doing so that they can get better. So we look at the thought, the toxin, and the trauma, physical trauma of their entire life. And we really get down to it and we really figure it out. Everything matters. We do a very thorough examination, just a health history, and we just really sit and talk and really poke and prod. A lot of people who have been in my office who have gotten an exam, they're like, wow, I feel like I got an exam. You were hands on, you listened to my lungs, you took my blood pressure. Sometimes you go to the doctor and they're just like sitting across from you and they don't like touch you or look at you and they just write something on a pad and scribble off. So it's really important to connect with people and love people and have fun with people because we're here for a short time, we're here for a good time, and we have each other, and we might as well have a good time being healthy together. So before I wrap up, I wanted to give people like something to do for their health to maybe refresh their bodies. And this is a tool I use and I love to use. It's called the Dr. B reset. And sometimes you just need to reset. Um, and the herbs and supplements you take during this time, it should be specific to the person, but I'll just talk about what I would do. But the foods are a general recommendation if you don't have sensitivities to them. So it's very simple. So I like to start with a high level of antioxidants. So I use a good amount of vitamin C, NAC, um, and I'll probably use something like mimosa or andrographis as like an antimicrobial, and I will use a binder like Takasumi or Silax. Could use all of it. And I also will use some beef organ supplements. And I will do about 3 to 5 days of just a bone broth fast. Great company is Kettle and Fire, and choosing the beef bone broth is a great choice. And you have about 12 ounces of bone broth, you can have it up to 5 times a day. I don't care. Um, and it's just a great way it's like you're fasting, but you're not hungry. It's just a perfect kind of place to be. You're taking some herbs, you're taking some vitamins, so you're not getting too depleted. I usually drink a little bit of LMNT electrolyte water during this time. Um, and then I go on a very serious elimination diet after 3 to 5 days. And the elimination diet is very strict. So it's basically just 2 weeks, which is not really that long of a time I fast. It's pretty difficult the first couple of days because you're off of a fast. But I basically am eating any meat you want. It can't be processed meat, though, but it could be chicken, turkey, eggs, beef. I usually like to emphasize red meat, as red meat has B vitamins, carnitine, it has heme binding irons, as other animals who are not ruminant and do not produce red meat, they are sometimes usually fed corn and soy, and you are what you eat. So it's important to get grass fed and finished produce. I'd rather have grass fed and finished than organic. With produce, all of the above would be ideal. So you have that. I incorporate avocados, eggs, and the treat of the day is a quarter cup of macadamia nuts. That's the little special light at the tunnel. And you try this for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, you have to be careful when you introduce carbohydrates back. I usually recommend people to incorporate like blueberries or a berry, a lower fruit to help their body. And I think this is just a great thing to get your body back on without having to spend a bunch of money on some sort of crazy online false promise profit that's just going to cause you to crash and burn. And this way, you've detoxed, you've had some antioxidants, you've had some nutrition. Maybe you're going to move forward with the diet, now more comfortable prioritizing protein as the center of your diet. You've stopped feeding the fungus with so much sugar and carbohydrates. It's good to do for term. Long term, I do not recommend it. But I think there is a lot of success to be had. And I think it's a good first step. A lot of people to try. I think it's simple and I think it's really safe. But I always urge people, if something's going on, reach out to a healthcare practitioner. I'm here to answer any questions and help people. I love what I do. I have a great time in practice. I love being in practice and working with patients, and I'm here for this community. And that just about wraps it up. I love you guys. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Dr. Bland. That was fabulous.
Oh, thank God. I'm thirsty now.
There we go. So, folks, feel free to unmute yourselves at this time. Our presenter's camera will be the only one visible on the Facebook Live. We can end the Facebook Live if you feel comfortable with that, but feel free to ask any questions in the chat box or unmute yourselves. We want to hear your questions. This is an interactive platform.
Ask a
I have a
question.
question.
Oh, thank you, Lily. Yes.
Doctor, I want to hear your input on kids that have autism and their
That's a
diet that
great
they're supposed to be following.
that's a great question. Um, one in 8 or 1 in 7 children are now born on the spectrum, so it's become a very prevalent patient that I see in my practice. If you go on my website, I actually have research that I have published for people on the spectrum as well as people who are developmentally delayed. And a lot of success can be had in this field. We need more people talking about it. Um, One thing I know that is really important, that if you know a child on the spectrum, keep them away from processed foods. A lot of people soothe their children with foods that are highly processed. So avoid processed foods and gluten, fast food, chips, seed oils. Um, these are the first step that I would take. There are tons of supplements that can be implemented, such as Inspiracell. I also deeply believe, haven't spoke on it enough as a chiropractor. Um, being on the spectrum is a nervous system disorder, and nobody understands that deeper than a chiropractor. Chiropractors are leaving chiropractic school with a diplomat level of understanding of functional and regular neurology. So the adjustment in itself, connecting the brain to the body, can change and make such an amazing and miraculous difference in the sensory processing experience that these people on the spectrum are having. To my understanding from studying so much and interacting with these patients and specializing and working with them, is that they're extra sensitive, their sensitivity, their superpower. So the foods you give them, like if you give a kid on the spectrum some like a Hershey's bar, the seed oils, the sugar, the methylxanthines from the chocolate, it's like caffeine, it's like crack to them, and it turns them into a completely different chemical being. I also see this. I see a lot of pans and pandas patient who are just young children with behavioral issues, a high level of dysbiosis and microbial imbalance. So the best thing to do is to get them to a doctor, um, get them muscle tested, identify different infections, identify the food sensitivities, check a couple of labs, and if you want to talk privately later, you can shoot me a message or an email. But I think that great question. Thank you for asking it. Did my answer satisfy the question?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. That's a good
We
question.
Yes, we have a question in the chat box. I've been diagnosed with scarring alopecia on my scalp. Any advice?
Scarring alopecia on the scalp. Well, with not really much being known about your health history, I would assume that this is like I always say, a multifactorial moment. There's probably a couple of reasons why it's going on. I believe that if you're dealing with that, it's recent, it's most likely fungal in nature, um, and or parasitic in nature, and you need to be seen somebody. As I know, alopecia on the scalp can be a very sensitive reality for a lot of people. Um, I do see quite a few people with alopecia on the scalp. Some of them are autoimmune, by parasites, a lot of them are fungal. Sometimes it's also compiled stress and hormone issues, maybe thyroid. So there's so many things it really needs to be treated. But that's as I was talking about TH1 and TH2, your body in a highly inflamed and highly um, immune mediated moment. So it's a great question, but I want to make sure that you get to a practitioner if you haven't worked with somebody. Um, Something you can do at home, look at your products that you're using on your body, look at your stress. Um, Sometimes silver gel, nanoparticle silver gel could maybe work, maybe a biofilm buster if it's been going on for a while. Um, I would maybe use some tea tree or cedar oil, and a little bit of tallow, maybe. I think that would be a great idea. Hopefully that answered the question. But if you need to find a practitioner, let me know, and we'll get you one. Oh, cool. Wayne Tripp. Hey, Wayne, how you doing? Love to hear any dietary or supplementary recommendations for tinea versicolor. Okay. I think that's probably sounds fungal in you're welcome, Pam. I don't think that sounds fungal in nature. Um, Tinea vesicolor, if your body is having an issue, I would hit it with at least maybe Mosa Morinda golden red, possibly. Uh, or immune armor sounds like that could be a good idea. Supporting the autonomic nervous system and the autonomics with organ replacements. Um, I think also mental health and stress, addressing, those underlying causes, having the spine adjusted so that the brain nervous system can do its job. A lot of people seek chiropractic out for back pain. It's like the last thing that I would ever seek it out for. The first thing you want to seek it out for is your body. So your body and nervous system, if they're working correctly, it's creating all of these millions of organizations, trillion organizations between cells. So every 90 days you get new blood cells. Every day you take your clothes off, put on your pajamas, a million skin cells are programmed to die, and there's new ones waiting for you. That's why you don't see your skeleton ever. So it's important to get adjusted because that's what regulates the nervous system. So these adjustments help the brain and the body absorb the diet, absorb the nutrients, take
Mm.
the supplements and do what it needs to do with it. So I think all of those things are important. I think one thing I didn't even touch on today, which I think is a huge thing, is exercise and sunlight. You got to move. Exercise are extremely important. Do what you can do. If you can't do anything, get a resistant band and just pull it on your rocking chair or something. If you gotta walk, you can walk for a half hour, walk a half hour a day, and build it up. Start at the gym 1 day a week. No one wants you to be a bodybuilder or gigantic, huge person, but I think more people need to work out and leverage movement for their health. There was a recent study for chronically ill people with chronic heart condition, other kind of like, terminal condition. And the people who worked out versus didn't work out, people who worked out lived a tremendous amount longer than those who didn't work out with the same exact condition and diet. So it's really, that's a huge factor. So if you're having tinea versicolor and it's not going away, I recommend you finding a doctor that you're comfortable with and talking about that because that's probably something that's very uncomfortable for you. Did I answer all the questions correctly? Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you. And let us know if you need anything, okay? You shoot me an email.
Great
Any more questions?
one. I don't see any on the live stream, but we're going to say goodbye to our Facebook Live friends, and we thank you for tuning in. And big thanks to Dr. Ryan Bland. It's always an honor working with you.
Thank you guys so much.